Good evening, everybody. Brett's fixing the hats, getting them all straight, and then they're going to start falling out at us
Quality
while
shot one.
we're waiting for Chris to come in.
How's everybody doing? Good? Brett and Ken?
Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How are you?
Yeah, doing all right.
Awesome.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I hear you guys great, and
right.
very much appreciating your social distancing divider.
Yeah, we got the social distancing going on, so no complaints here.
Got the mask just in case.
Yeah. Are they branded masks? Are you guys selling branded masks?
Soon.
We're working on it.
Right.
June 12th, the week of June 12th. Thanks for the plug there, Chris.
Yeah.
June 12th, we will have them.
Always there to offer you guys the plugs.
Yeah, gotta turn the volume up so we can hear you. So
okay.
All right, perfect. All right, so yeah, so we will have the masks. They've been going through the licensing process and everything, so it's taking a lot longer than anybody anticipated. But
everybody's asking.
But so thank you for joining. So let's officially kick this off.
Cool.
So thank you for joining Canes Alumni Biz by CanesWear. I don't have my paper, and I said it right the first time, which is really good. Awesome.
You need cue cards?
Yeah, I usually have my cue card in front. So.
I've got David Letterman in the background doing them for us.
So we've got a little different format today. We got Brett joining us today. Say hi, Brett.
Hello, Chris. Hello, IG world.
And then Chris, how about you tell us who you are?
Yeah, my name is Chris Wittyngham. I guess we're doing this as part of Broward County Canes. So I am indeed a University of Miami alumnus. I work in the broadcasting world, radio, television, digital, and the like.
Excellent. And you can say, or you don't have to say what years you went to UM.
Oh yeah, I went to UM from 2010 until 2014.
Okay. So we were talking earlier that was a rather interesting time at the university.
Yes. Yeah. So I arrived, it was my first football season. You could just get sort of thrown right into it, right? Was the last year of Randy Shannon's tenure. I remember being one of very, very, very few students that was in the student section that last home game against USF, because it's always that Thanksgiving week game where nobody goes. Right. But I'm local, so I went to the game, and that ended up being his last. And then I was telling you that I ended up being named WVUM, which is the campus radio station sports director, ahead of 2011. And so my first kind of big media experience at UM was right after the Nevin Shapiro article dropped on Yahoo Sports, and showing up to the Heck Center that day to be greeted by like 250 media members. And it was this overwhelming, like, what is going on thing. So that and the Al Golden years, 3 of the 4 of them. And then UM basketball winning the ACC, both in the conference tournament and regular season, and plenty of other great memories as well. Some great women's basketball teams then too. So yeah.
So just a couple different, some highs and some lows.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I will say, Ken, that Chris, you and I have a lot in common. That us at CanesWear, for that matter, we started our warehouse where we started before the store previous to this. We started in April of 2010, and moved out of there in August of 2014. So wow. Right at the beginning was the Randy Shannon, going through those games, just live or die on them. We were just new in the business. Then Golden came on. It seemed like at that time everybody's exciting, including myself. I remember that, I think it was the Riverside Hotel. I don't know if you went to that event. There was a big event that they had, that Golden was there, people for Broward. And that was great. Everybody was excited. I mean, I was pumped. And then all of a sudden, the Nevin Shapiro thing came down. And it was like a ton of...
Well, it wasn't even just the Nevin Shapiro thing. It was like the sales pitch, right? Like Al Golden, one of the best salesmen, right? You just believed the pitch, right? Even though, I mean, by year 4, you realize that there aren't really results to back it up on the field, but you just sort of believe the sales pitch that, oh my God, this guy, he talks the talk. He has a different look to him. He's wearing a tie. This tie is going to lead you places. But yeah, he is the perfect coach for an alumni association room, right? Like he will charm the pants out of an alumni association room. But
He was
he couldn't
prepared.
do
He
enough
was
with
awfully
football.
prepared with those
Yeah.
notes and everything. But do you think that he would have done? I mean, it's hard to think that he wouldn't have done better if the Shapiro thing wouldn't have taken place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that was its own obviously unique set of circumstances, and we long talked about the cloud that hung over the program. The cloud was this amorphous thing that was an ever present. But I guess what has happened since the fact that he's not got another head coaching job, that he's kind of proven to be a salesman without a lot to back it up. It kind of proves that it was probably always going to head that direction anyway. And the kind of remarkable thing is that when you actually look back on those teams, and I remember some of the games because I'm commentating them. And like I remember they played NC State and they had like 575 yards of offense. If you put that offense led by Stephen Morris with the current defense, you'd have a really good team.
Right.
But I mean, their defenses were atrocious. So if you could just marry those two ideas, you'd have a good football team. And it's kind of weird to think that the takeaway from those teams that they were good at offense and dreadful at defense, and you don't really think of Al Golden in that way as like or Jed Fish or James Coley, the coordinators they had at the time. Like you don't think of them as geniuses, but their offenses were amazing.
They were spectacular,
except against Clemson.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that day, I remember. I just obviously left college. That was 2015, and I remember I worked that day because I was at 790, and they were looking for. Like those whip around shows that they do on ESPN radio, where it's like, hey, let's go live now to Jordan Hare Stadium where Auburn has just scored. And so I was that for ESPN that day for their college game day show. And so I kept calling, right? Like, cause you'd call whenever there'd be a touchdown. So I called and they're like, at 35-0, it's like, I think we got it. I think we know what's happening in that game. We don't need updates every time. I will never forget just the slack-jawed amazement. And look, you go back and look at that team. It's Deshaun Watson and an incredible cast of college athletes. But I remember just feeling on that day, oh, this is what it's like when you play Savannah State or Florida A&M. And basically, it's just every time down, they could score if they want to. Clemson could have scored 100 points that day. Like I'm not even kidding. It's could have like. It's just such an indelible mark on watching the Canes, and like that day was like, all right, there's no bouncing back from this. There's no recovering from this.
Right. So that was the low. So let's talk about the basketball experience that you had, because that
Sure.
was pretty cool.
Yeah. So I remember, and it was funny because the ACC network was doing Canes Day, right, and they were running back a lot of games, and one of them was when they beat then #1 Duke. It'll always for me be Bank United Center. It's always the Buck, and it'll always be that. And I remember, I called the game with my friend Alex Schwartz, and he was telling the story on his Instagram. He now works at the athletic department. He's the SID for men's basketball, and he was telling the story that he had asked me because I was the sports director. I was in charge. Hey, can I call the second half? Generally, because we used to split halves. So generally you wanted the second half assignment because if it's a close game, then you're calling the end of the game and you're going to get those memorable moments. But I got all the memorable moments because by halftime of that Duke game, they were winning by like 27. And the second half was just a coronation of like you're waiting for the court to be stormed, basically. And obviously getting to be involved in that was really fun. But like those basketball teams, and none of them really had any terribly prodigious NBA careers. I mean, Shane Larkin had a moment. But I mean, just it was incredible to watch a basketball school. I remember when I showed up, again, when you show up and you think about what it's going to be, I showed up and it was Frank Haith's final season. And that, I mean, you talk about morose. I remember going to a Maryland game. That was when Maryland was still in the ACC. And just being like, what is this? Like, how is this ever going to get any better? And then they hired Jim Larinaga, and it was is he here for a retirement tour kind of thing? Just that next season was as memorable as it got for me. Like still to this day, the most fun I had calling a sporting event was that Duke game because they stormed the court. There was a slapping of the floor. There was just that flurry of like score. I was like 19-19 with 8 minutes to play, and by halftime it was 40-22. Like it was like just this onslaught, and I'll never forget that day. It was so much fun.
We actually came out with a shirt at that time. It said they were top ranked and now they're spanked. So it was pretty cool. It did pretty well. But yeah, that was just an awesome day. We just came in there and just blew them out. It was phenomenal. It was like Are we watching is this game correct? Are we watching the right sport?
Yeah.
Did they switch uniforms or something like that?
No, I remember that. I don't know. I don't remember if they won the game, but I remember them playing North Carolina, and that was when they had John Henson, who had an NBA career, Kendall Marshall had an NBA career, Harrison Barnes obviously went on to win a championship with the Warriors. And you're watching, like, I mean, I remember Harrison Barnes really struck me as like, oh, that guy's a pro. Like, I've watched a bunch of college kids. That's what a pro basketball is like. Sorry, I might have lost
But that team we had a lot of length. I mean,
you guys for a second. I was getting a call.
that team we had a lot of length. But that's the team that lost in the Sweet 16, correct? Was that the team that lost in the Sweet 16?
Yeah. They lost to Marquette in the Sweet 16. Yeah.
Yeah, we had the injury or I forgot who that was, but yeah, that was we were predicted we could have gone much further. So yeah, that Marquette was a tough loss. Marquette was actually better than I thought, and most people thought.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one because that team seemed to have it all, and Coach L just had it all.
Yeah, I remember getting just like you get to the second weekend of the tournament, and that, like I loved. I remember when I was in high school, I loved the first day of the NCAA tournament, and like not even having any vested interest. Like I just loved that. You know, it was the rare sporting event that was on while you were in school. And I remember like begging my teacher in fifth period to put on the first round of the tournament, and so like I love that day, and for the Canes to have been part of it. I remember they played a regional. I want to say it was in Texas, like at the University of Texas, and like going to Sports Grill by campus to watch the Canes in the tournament because it was like such a new phenomenon.
Right. So before we get any farther, you know, we always ask this question, and Dolphin, I don't know if you see the comment on there. We always get the question. So you want to read it for the?
Oh yeah. Do you like pineapple on your pizza? No, I don't. I'm a pizza traditionalist. Pepperoni's good for me. Maybe you know, a few other meats, but no, fruit and pizza, they're two different tastes. You hear people like, oh, they're the taste profile, it's sweet with salty, and it's no, I'm eating one thing at a time. I'm good.
All right, so Dolphin, we got your question asked as you.
Cool.
All right. So I don't know if you saw any other comments on there. We're a little bit too far away from the camera to be able to read them. So if you see anything on there, it's just showing people to join. But I did see some comments earlier, so I don't know. If you saw them, no big deal. But if anybody has any comments, any questions for Chris, it looks like you may. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking here. I co-host Chelsea Mic'd Up with Mike Ryan, and since you guys are wearing Inter Miami jerseys, he commented earlier, "Announce Messi," which is I don't know if you guys. I don't know how familiar you guys with soccer parlance, but whenever you want a transfer, like to go and get like a big player, you tweet at the account, "Announce so and so." And so, like, announce him as your newest signing. So, with all this Inter Miami gear, announce Messi was in the comment section. So,
okay. Hey, right.
Yeah. I mean, that's lofty. I don't know if Messi's coming to Miami, but maybe someday.
Yeah,
maybe someday. It's
yeah.
Before he's like 95 years old.
Right. Exactly. Although, I mean, as well as he's playing it, like as many games as he's played, I'm not putting it past him to play well until he's 40. Like he's just an incredible player.
Well, how old do you think he is now?
I think he's 34. But the thing is, like, one of the things that I didn't realize, like, I've been watching a lot of these classic shows, is in soccer in particular, players start when they're 16 or 17. Right. So by the time they're 33, 34, they've played 18 years worth of games. And all of a sudden, look at a player page, like, oh, that guy's played 900 games in his career. And it's like they've just been playing 40 games a year for their entire careers.
And that's just the official ones.
Right, exactly. Yeah, never mind friendlies.
Well, Mario Lemieux left to South Florida, obviously, so maybe we'll get some of these other guys as well. There's going to be a lot of guys that want to retire and just want to be here and just hanging on and have
for sure, yeah.
South Beach. So
yeah.
So what was it like when you did the first English translation of a Spanish game for?
Yeah. So the way that they do it at Univision, it's sort of backwards. Like, for example, if you watch like a Marlins game on Fox Sports Florida, they'll go to like the SAP commentators, like, hey, here's how you can watch the game on SAP. Right. Well, at Univision, it's the exact opposite, where the main feed is in Spanish, and then let's go to our SAP announcers, and I'm talking in English, right? So yeah, it's a very interesting experience because not only are you doing that, but the broadcast is also being digitally streamed on Twitter. So it's like you're serving multiple masters at once, and it's this odd experience where yours is like the alternate commentary, but also like a lot of people, like we were told research that 20 to 30% of the viewers or actually do that which is weird because you don't do that for other things. So it's an expectation on the viewer. But apparently a lot of people do it. And I just kind of like, I don't try and get caught up in, how many people are watching or which audience. I just do the job the way that I do the job normally. Like you do it in, I've been on college radio. I've been on, radio here in Miami, on digital. And so you just do the job, right? So, I mean, it is a little bit strange, but yeah, I enjoy it.
Now, Chris, I've heard you on the radio at 790, and but I've never noticed now that you're talking, you have a little bit of Dave O'Brien in you, I think.
Really?
And you ever get anyone ever say that?
No, I've never had anyone suggest what my broadcasting style is or who I sound like.
Just the way it sounds.
I appreciate the compliment. Yeah.
Just rang a little bit. Who obviously got a career going for him.
Yeah.
Started, did a great job for the Marlins and now ESPN. I know. Take us through the first two games of Inter Miami. The first game,
Sure.
The tough game against the Galaxy. The second game, we had that 2-0 lead, and that just turned so fast on us. What's your feeling on those games?
Yeah, so actually I had the chance to go to Los Angeles for that first game. It was one of those things where I was looking at my work schedule going, I don't think I'm going to be working that Sunday. So I was like starting to plan it. And then once I got officially my assignments and that Sunday I had off, I was like, all right, I'm going. I guess it's sort of the freedom of being a single man with no responsibilities, where you can just up and go to Los Angeles on a Sunday morning. So I flew out on a 6:30 in the morning flight to Los Angeles, got there around 9 a.m. local time, and the game kicked off at 2:30 local time, and just got to hung out with the supporters and stuff like that at a bar right by the stadium. It was a crazy experience for me because obviously I'm a massive soccer fan. Anyone who follows sports in the city knows that that team, it's been 6 years that they've been trying to get that thing off the ground since it was formally announced, and so to actually see it come to fruition, and then you start digging into the game, and I thought that, for an expansion team that was, giving it a go for their first time, that didn't have their full complement of players, that was starting a college draft pick, as their starting center forward, which is normally the position where you want your best player. I thought they'd done really well. LAFC, for the uninitiated, is might be the best team in the history of the league. They've got incredible players, an incredible manager. Their style of play is fantastic. And I thought that there was a real chance that it could be ripped apart. Miami had their chances in the game. They had one or two where you go back, oh man, that was it. That was the chance to get the draw. But I thought it was a great performance. And then in DC, you're up 1-0. You get, as you mentioned, that second goal. But they go to video review, VAR as they call it in soccer. And they overturn not only the goal, but then give a red card to a Miami defender for a previous handball offense. And the game totally turns on a dime from there, and Miami didn't recover. If not for that incident, even if you don't get the second goal, but you're just up 1-0, I thought they would have cruised to victory because I just thought they were the superior team on the day. And the unfortunate bit is you want more of a sample size. You want 6-7 games, particularly at the beginning, to know what the team is. So based off those 180 minutes, I was encouraged, but it's just 2 games. You just don't really have a real sense of who they are and what they're trying to be as a team after just the 2 games. And now one of the things that I've noticed, obviously I'm a big soccer fan, with the German league coming back, is teams are going to come back and not look the same. There are teams that were going one way before the break, and now they're going to look entirely different. I think that's going to be the case across all sports, that it's going to look unrecognizable from what you thought was happening before the break. So I don't know how much you even learned from it, based off of the fact that you just only saw 2 games, and now there's been 3 months since the last one.
Well, the same could be said for basketball, for baseball, hockey, everything. I mean, the Panthers are in the playoffs.
Right, exactly. They're the 10 seed. they're the 10 seed going against the Islanders. Yeah, they announced that today. But yeah, I mean, they've got and hockey is the most random playoff sport that we have. Anyone can if the 10 seeded Panthers went to the Stanley Cup Finals, would it be that shocking? I don't think so.
Not in a pandemic year, but maybe.
You're right, in a normal year, yeah.
I don't know. The Dolphins went to the Super Bowl against the Redskins in the strike-shortened season, the year of the. I guess you could say the scabs is what they called them, but we went to the Super Bowl that year, so it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's the year before Dan Marino, I'm pretty sure. So that was, so you never know. A 10 seed, that would be the first 10 seed to do it.
Yeah, right. And there are no, and we'll be the only 10 seed to do it, right? Because you can't imagine this is everything that's going to happen. And so I've heard people mention this in relations to NBA conversations, right? There's talk about a World Cup style group stage and NBA playoffs and all these different ideas. Like, you kind of are asking the players and the organizations and everyone involved to appreciate the history of it all, right? Because it's going to be an anomaly to everything that happened before or after. Like, nothing will look like this season did. So just kind of enjoy being a part of history in this very strange way. Like, everyone will talk about when you look at the record books and be like, wait, how come the Heat only played 64 games in 2019-20? Like, it will be an anomaly that we talk about for the remainder of time.
And they had games in July, August, September.
Right, exactly. Like, the baseball season will be half as long as it normally is, and that'll just be a number that looks different for the rest of time.
Right. Maybe they'll shorten the season for good.
Right. Well, I mean, I think every league except for the NFL and college football can do with a season shortening. Like, my thing is you play every team twice, because I've learned this from soccer. Every team twice, home and away, and like 58 games for basketball and hockey is more than enough. 117 or whatever for baseball is more than enough. Like, you get representative, and it doesn't. And like, to me, it's about building anticipation for events rather than having a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, didn't they have the split season? Was it baseball or basketball? They had the split season on the one of the years, and it just went off so much better.
Yeah. Baseball? So the NBA had the lockout shortened season that was 66 games. That was in 2011 or 2011. Yeah, the 2011-12 season, and then they had the one that was 50 games in '99. So that, like, you have a few examples of that.
Yeah. So I think sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
I agree.
So for those of you just joining us, we have this wonderful divider between Brett and I for our social distancing. So yes, we have Inter Miami stuff and all. So what's going on with you and Inter Miami right now? Is there anything that you can talk about, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I was slated to do the first game of theirs for an online radio broadcast. I mean, who knows? Even if they do come back, like, we don't know if it counts towards the regular season or if its own tournament. So I don't know what the future of any of these things are. But yeah, I'd done their second game for Univision. I was going to do their third game for a radio stream, and who knows what happens from here.
But so how are you keeping busy now?
Yeah, so I co-host a podcast that I mentioned earlier called Chelsea Mic'd Up, which is about Chelsea Football Club of the English Premier League. They do a lot of, I was telling Ken that they do a lot of research and building of fan bases across the world. They want to, that's kind of the unique nature of being a soccer club, is you can be big anywhere. And so the London area is where Chelsea is located, but they want to branch out into India and China and Hong Kong, and the United States is another big one. So they have a whole marketing operation, and they wanted to start to produce content, and podcast came up. They brought on Mike Ryan of the Dan Le Batard Show, who's a friend of mine who I started my radio career with as an intern. And he asked if I can do the podcast with them. So we've been doing that for a year now. We do it every week. It's on all of your preferred podcasting platforms. And we do the podcast every week. We have like incredible access. Like, we've talked to 6 or 7 members of the team. These are world superstars. We've had the chance to talk to them, and we're scheduled to talk to the manager pretty soon. So it's been a really fun experience to get to work with a pro football club. That's the sport that I'm really interested in. So to get a chance to do that has been really fun.
You do that for U.S. time or England time?
Well, I mean, it's weird, right? So the workflow. So I send like an edit of the podcast on like a Tuesday night, and we find out if they like it on a Wednesday morning. Like, it's kind of weird how, we've done some interviews where we'll be like, hey, we can do it during like the middle of the afternoon UK time, but for us, like, we've taped interviews at 7 a.m. We're like, I have to schedule a thing at 7 a.m. So yeah, I mean, generally we work on our time, but occasionally we have to conform, and we've had the chance to go over there. So we do things on their time as well.
Awesome. Chris, so soccer, we played 2 games. They're talking about a tournament going on first. Is that going to be part of the season, the tournament, or that's just going to be getting back in shape? Yeah, so the most recent reports have been that part of the tournament will be towards the regular season. So basically they're going to put everyone in different groups, right, and play a round robin. And that round robin group stage will be counting towards the season. So there'll be 5 games there. They'll all be conference opponents. They're going to, shorten the schedule so that
The reports are that they're going to shorten the schedule, I believe, to 23 games. So you play at least every team in your conference, and then they're expanding the playoffs to 9 teams in each conference get in. Of the total 26 in the league, that's 18 of 26 teams get in. So, I mean, obviously, that's more of a chance that Miami could get in. And some of these games will count towards their regular season points total. So they could be important. But then once you get past the group stage, there's, a thought like, what do you do in a knockout round? There's a chance that you give, money incentives or incentives towards qualifying for other tournaments. They play, the 4 best MLS teams play in what's called CONCACAF Champions League, which is the competition of the whole of the region. So like the best teams from the U.S. play the best teams from Mexico and Honduras and Costa Rica. So there's potential for a spot in that competition to be on the line. But yeah, they're trying to figure out ways to make these seem important.
Awesome. Awesome. If anyone's just joining us, we're talking to Chris Wittyngham, a play-by-play announcer. So Chris is on, Ken, and obviously I'm Brett. So glad you can join us. Chris, turning to football, obviously a lot of talk, will college football be played? Will the NFL be played? Obviously the NFL doesn't care about what's going on. They're going to play, I'm pretty sure. They want to play still in front of full houses. I heard them say, well, we'll play in front of half if we have to, but the plan is, 100%. I heard them say, if there's nothing medically against it. So I think they'll probably go to the half, but they will play. What's your thought on the NCAA? I know different schools are talking things. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, you do kind of wonder, like, for example, the president of the University of Miami, Julio Frank, is legitimately a public health expert. Like, he was the minister of health for Mexico, and this is his area of expertise. And you have colleges all over the country where academics, medical people are in charge, right? They have real say on what's going to happen. And I just don't know. I can't see a scenario in which every major college football program has a fully operational university, right? And that to me is the biggest thing, is how can you have football players on campus and playing games and not have other students being on campus performing their academic activities, and B, other athletes playing in games, right? Because the football season is not the only sport that happens in the fall. You have track and field, you have men's and women's soccer, you have all kinds of other sports that start during the fall. Are you not going to bring them onto campus and not have them play games in front of full houses? Like, I get that football is the moneymaker, but even the NFL thing, like, I can't. Who is going to feel comfortable going into a place with 65,000 people? Never mind 32,000 people. Like, to me, it would have to be a highly regimented 10,000 people in a 65,000 seat stadium that are socially distanced, that have entrance times and exit times, that you have a full-on regimentation of using the bathroom, getting concessions. Like, it has to be an operation to get a sixth of the crowd in. Like, that to me is the only way that you can have a crowd in, because I can't envision a scenario in which that many people are gonna be in the same place. And we've seen in Italy, for instance, major sporting events were among the hubs of the spread of the virus. And so, especially if we're heading towards the fall where, second waves are a possibility, like, I just can't imagine that you're going to have fully packed houses and everything is going to be okay.
I can see that. So as long as they're playing, I think everybody wants to go to the games, but I think if they're playing, I think it'll please quite a few people. If we can get 10,000 people in a 60,000 stadium, it's just going to be a harder ticket to get. More people want to go. So as long as they're playing.
Would you though? Because it's not going to be what you're used to, right? When I remember the day of Notre Dame, for instance, getting there 4 hours early, the lines, through the tailgate lots, just packed with people, and you feel the atmosphere. You get in the stadium, and the Trajan Bandy runs back a pick six, and it's 65,000 people
in that stadium. I mean, we had lines for that whole week, the Notre Dame and the Virginia Tech game, that were all the way down the block. So our lines in the store. So we're not going to get if everyone's not going to the game. We understand that. But the electricity in that game was phenomenal. Even the Notre Dame players say now that was the loudest stadium they ever heard. Yeah,
Durham Smythe, who plays for the Miami Dolphins now, said that's the best crowd he's ever been in. And so if it's not that, then are you going to want to go? Obviously it is exclusive and it's a relief from what our day-to-day has been over the course of a lot of this. But I don't think it's going to be that attractive of a proposition to be like, well, I'm basically going to go in with the same people. I can't high-five anybody. The noise that we make collectively is not going to be the same noise that we could make if there were 65,000 of us. So especially if the games aren't good or the team is losing, like, it just makes the experience that much worse.
I agree, but I think everything is relative. Look how many people
Of
watched
course.
this. Look how many people watched the draft this year. Like, I
How
mean,
many people? Look how many people watched this Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, Peyton Manning, Phil Mickelson thing. Like people watched it in droves. The first weekend that the German league was back, people watched it in droves. Like you're right, there is a desperation, but I just don't know if I don't know how much desperation there is.
that's a good point. Speaking of the Canes, have you been? What's your thoughts on the incoming team? Derek
Yeah.
King, you got Manny and everything like that. What's your thought?
Yeah, I thought, I mean, obviously last year was something of a rock bottom. Even, we talked about 59-0 earlier,
Mm-hmm.
or 58-0, the Clemson game, and that was a rock bottom. But I think last year was, losing to FIU and losing to Louisiana Tech, getting shut out by Louisiana Tech. To me, it was a wake-up call, not only that the program is basically a logo that has a bunch of hype around it right now, right? Like I just, there's so much work to be done. That's real hard work to grow. And one of the things for me that I was most encouraged by heading into the season was the change in quarterback, the change in coordinator. Not just, I mean, how many times have fans bought into a coordinator?
Exactly.
It's more about the philosophy, right? It's the spread,
We wanted
four
the
wide
spread.
receivers,
We got the spread.
up tempo. Miami needs to kind of graduate into the modern era.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was so excited just to see what that looked like, right? We've so often talked about what would Miami look like with their athletes and a spread system where everyone's flying around and you're running 90 plays a game, but we just haven't had the chance to see that. So I'm really excited for that proposition, and even just from an aesthetics point of view, like I just enjoy that style better. So I think I would have enjoyed the 12 games even if they didn't necessarily come with a requisite change in results. But I think losing to FIU and losing to Louisiana Tech for me is the feeling that Miami is no longer a program where you assume they can beat anybody, right? Like just by showing up, okay, you can beat the FCS opponents, but you can't assume you're going to beat anybody else. Like the team needs to demonstrate with the quality of their performance that they have the ability to beat good teams, never mind bad ones.
Well, I think sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before
Of course.
you can bounce. I mean, it's a bigger bounce. And I think Manny went ahead. He needed an offense coordinator. Everybody was crying spread. He got Lashley. He needed a quarterback. He got King. He needed a kicker. He got the kicker that beat him. Whatever he needed another defensive end. He got a top defensive end. He needed linemen. He got him.
Right, which to me is the mark of someone who's going to bounce back from this. But he was also the one who was talking the talk ahead of year one.
Totally.
At the very least, now
you won't make that mistake again.
Right,
pulling up.
Right, which is kind of unfortunate to me because I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the notion of of swaggering and all that. But the swagger Miami talks about needs to be it needs to be backed up by results. But I enjoyed it, but at the same time, we can talk about it as much as we like and hype and get excited, but when you get your head handed to you by FIU, it just there's no recovering from that. You have to put in work, and you have to, as you said, fix your issues and worry about being good on the field before you be good with your mouth.
Absolutely, I think a lot of first-year coaches, and you look at Jimmy wasn't great at Oklahoma State his first couple of years. I mean, even Saban wasn't great at Michigan State. I mean, so there's been quite a few that were not stars right at the beginning, and hopefully Manny learned from that. I mean, first time being a head coach is completely different than being a coordinator.
Of course, yeah, and I what's funny is that the defensive numbers are still good. Like in terms of coaching defense, they're still good at coaching defense. I think they were top 15 in the country again, and in defensive yards per play against. So he's really good at coaching defense. I think he's got what Miami as a program is about, but they can't score points. I mean, you couldn't. If you had an offense that scored 28 points every week, they would have won 10 games last year. They've had no problem winning games, but. You can't score points, and so you have to find the best way to do that, and that's not Manny Diaz's forte. So you have to trust someone to bring it to come in and do that. But I don't know if they picked the right guy. We won't know until you get results. And ultimately, it's not just about picking this guy right. I mean, what Clemson does, they lost a coordinator. He went to be the head coach at SMU, and their offense chugged along. It's about building a sustainable model for offense, not just this one guy is going to solve our problem.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, you also need the energy of a Jimmy Murphy type thing around the entire team.
Right. Oh, right. Of course. Exactly. It can't just be a one-off.
Right. Yeah, I was at the Duke game, and I said this when he was here, and also when he came to the store for the signing, that at the Duke game, you see him on the sidelines. He had the energy the entire time, even though it was pouring rain, freezing cold. It was nasty. But if the entire team would have had the energy that he had, we would have won that game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you've seen like those languid performances on offense in particular are the ones where it's like this just needs energy, this needs spark, this needs something.
Right.
And that's why they were constantly changing quarterbacks, because it always felt like the guy who wasn't playing would be the one that would provide it. That actually proved to be the case a couple of times.
Absolutely. The one thing I love about King is that he is every video on social media is about playing, about getting better, being a team leader. Nothing is about any of the side stuff or anything. He is just so focused on winning it. And I mean, there's throughout Canes history and all sports history, you want to go ahead and have a guy that's going to be a leader like that. That's not taking anything. All it is about playing on the field and winning.
I guess I need to start following DR King on social media then. That sounds exciting.
There you go. Now, it's awesome. So in your time at Miami, when you were doing the play-by-play, on the broadcasting. Thank you, Ken. Who is it? Did you have any favorite players? Any players that you thought they didn't have to be the best players, just your favorite interview or something like that?
Yeah. So I'm going through the Rolodex here. So there are a few that I had like personal experiences with. Like I had a class with Clive Walford, who was the tight end at the time, and he ended up playing for the Raiders and a few other teams. And like it was one of those things where, you know, you're a keen freshman, right? It's like, oh, let me see if me and the guy on the football team can strike up a friend. We became like acquaintances, but yeah. So he and I got to know each other a little bit. I really enjoyed Julian Gamble, mostly because he's just a grown ass man. Like, he was like 24 when he was like a 6th-year senior when I was there. So I really enjoyed him. That whole basketball crew. Like, I didn't get to talk to Shane Larkin much, but I mean, his athleticism and energy on the court was unparalleled. And then you had Eric Swope. I really enjoyed. He was on that men's basketball team. Ended up playing tight end. I think he's still playing tight end for the Colts. You had women's basketball. There was some great characters on that. So women's basketball is probably the team that we got to know the best because we actually got to be part of the traveling entourage for those teams. Nice. So I mean, that was Shanice Johnson and Raquana Williams, and there were some really like, and Katie Meyer is to this day my favorite person who I met at the University of Miami. She like even, you know, like she heard me on the radio one day, like she didn't really understand like what I did outside of the school, and she like sent me a message on Twitter like, oh my God, I heard you on the radio, that was incredible, like you're doing so great, and we're so proud of you. Yeah, like she's the nicest human that I met while I was there. Yeah, so I got to know her really well. Like there's a bunch of characters that I still miss. Like I still love going down to UM and going when I can, and seeing SIDs and seeing people that were around when I was there. It's sad though to think that was 10 years ago. Oh my God, it's horrifying.
It goes by fast. Trust me.
It does. It does.
The faster it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why that homecoming is good, and all the other things that we hope every year that they continue this year, because you definitely need that recharging and being connected to all those people is where it's at.
No doubt. I mean, homecoming. Yeah. I mean, that's another, like, I don't know. There's so many events that you can't foresee happening at this stage. I can't imagine. I would love to go to homecoming, but I don't know until we get a vaccine if I'm going to love going to homecoming, you know, like it's just one of those, like, there's so many public gatherings, like you just don't think, and look, I work in the crowds business. We need crowds to make the whole thing work. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to imagine that these things go off without crowd. Like, what is homecoming without a crowd? It's nothing. So, you know, like there's so many things that need large gatherings of people. And if you don't have them, then I think it's going to be hard to foresee. Obviously, hoping that it can go off and everything will be all right.
So we will usually end with the show by asking if you have words of advice for new graduates or people in the business. Anything that you would like to? Yeah.
Well, to me, so like, in terms of new graduates, I think one of the coolest bonds that I have with people in my life are people I went to college with. Like I still, actually yesterday I was playing FIFA with a friend of mine, AJ Ricketts, who went to the University of Miami, does radio now for FIU. which was odd for him. I imagine he's a football play-by-play man calling FIU's win. It's their biggest program, win ever. But he's a UM grad, right? So it's like how odd must that have been? But I was on the phone with him yesterday, and we were talking like they're still to this day, like I drive by that campus with a sense of wonder. Like I miss it so much, and the place is unrecognizable from when I went there. And they're building the new academic, or the student village for kids to live in. And you're walking through it, it's like, good God, these kids now are so spoiled. But yeah, I mean, there's like, to me, it's the bonds and the memories you share with people are to me some of the ones that I remember the most. I've seen some of them have come on by and sampled this InstaLive. So yeah, to me, it's about those memories and those opportunities you can to build real and genuine connections, even after you've left campus. I mean, obviously, it's a major part of it.
Right.
In the radio world, obviously, and just broadcasting, or you with 790, I know all the changes. And
Sure.
Time came over and everything like that. That we've been part of them as well. So a lot of changes. What suggestions would you give to somebody? I know podcasts are so big now. Everybody, it's all changing, obviously. What kind of advice do you think, or what the future looks like?
Yeah, I mean, my advice is to obviously expect the unexpected. I think, one of the things that's happened to me is I started with one idea of what I wanted to do, and 5 or 6 other ideas within the same media space have presented themselves, and you have to be open to them. I mean, I do think, I understand people that want to chart a course for their career and have a plan, but in some respects, in the way that the business, the anchor tenets of it, right, were newspapers, television, and radio, right? Like those are the anchor tenets. And all 3 of them have undergone massive changes from what they used to be. It used to be, if you wanted to be on television, you'd go to Media Market 120, somewhere, in rural America, be in a small market, then work into a medium-sized market, then a big-sized market, and then you're there for a long time, and maybe you get, called into a network. But those paths, those traditional paths, are kind of being blocked off right now by, people who stay in their jobs for a long time, by, TV stations and radio stations and newspapers that have smaller staffs and are always trying to hire younger and cheaper. And so you have to be prepared for when someone, as you said, with a podcast, with doing Instagram Live and building an audience that way, with doing all kinds of different things, video and audio, and learning how everything works. Like, you kind of have to be prepared to do anything, because even if you do get a job in a traditional place, you're still going to be asked to do all kinds of different things. You might be asked in a day to do video, a podcast, and write something for a website. So be good at everything, and learn how everything works, and try and find your place in it. Because I'm going to be a print journalist that works at the Miami Herald for 35 years. I don't know how many of that is going to exist in 10 years time. So be ready to do anything and work anywhere, and be willing to move. And Mike, thankfully I haven't had to yet, but be willing to go all over the country and be willing to try anything, because you don't know what's going to be the thing that works for you.
Great points. Great advice for people. I know in the 6 years that you've been out, obviously, so much has changed, and I can only imagine in the next 6 years. Yeah.
No, I mean, things that haven't been invented yet will dramatically affect my business. So that is something that is hard to project for. So the only thing you can hope to have is skills that can translate through all of them, and hopefully I can.
Awesome advice. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris, for being on our show. And,
absolutely.
Thank you guys for having me.
Seeing what you have coming up next, and we'll be following your career. And you're welcome to join us at any time.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you guys so much for having me and allowing me to relive some of my college years. They're some of my fondest memories, and this was great.
Fantastic.
Awesome, Chris.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. You do as well.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
People come in.